Shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, all praises, honor, and glory to the Father, Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Hamasiyach YHWHshi. Double honors to the elders, and peace and serenity to the 144 brothers out there pushing this truth in righteousness. With that being said, shalom. So, good morning, brothers and sisters. I'm over here reading the news from, it's like ABC News. U.S. News, Catholic Church spent $10 million in lobbyists in fight to stymie priest sex abuse suits. The money was spent in 8 northeastern states where bills to aid victims of clerical sex abuse were in the works. So they still spending that money to sit here and try to keep it quiet. The Roman Catholic Church spent more than $10 million lobbying against bills that would make it easier to sue for alleged sex abuse by clerics. So they want to hush up the victims. They're trying to hush the victims down. This is June 4th, 2019 by a Corky Salmasco. Right? The U.S. Catholic Church spent $10.6 million on lobbyists to prevent victims of clerical sex abuse from suing for damages. According to a new report, the money was doled out from 2011 through 2018 in 8 northeastern states where bills to reform statute of limitation laws were either in the works or being considered. So they was setting us up to keep this quiet. Hush, hush. This report lays out what we have known all along, that the Catholic Church refuses to take responsibility for the decades of abuse that took place knowingly under its watch, said attorney Stephen Weiss, who works for one of the law firms that commissioned the study. So they admitting it, they're just straight demons and devils, man, within there. The statutes of limitation reforms give survivors more time to obtain some measure of closure on the atrocities committed against them. Attorney Gerald Williams added, the church has yet to implement meaningful reforms, and by working to prevent these laws from passing, the church is clearly demonstrating that it does not stand with survivors. Clearly. They rape you and then sit here and say, hey, we did nothing. Right? Let's go to that one, man. It's the book of Job, chapter 9, verse 24. The earth is given into the hands of the wicked. He covereth the face of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? You see that? They play these games, man. Act like they don't know who these things are doing. They know what they're dealing with. In Pennsylvania, where currently victims of child sex abuse can come forward with criminal allegations until the age of 50 and can file civil claims until the age of 30, the church spent $5,322,979 to keep those limitations in place. That's a lot of money. According to the report, Church Influencing State, how the Catholic Church spent millions against survivors of clergy abuse. It's crazy. Millions to keep people quiet from letting them know they were raped or molested as a child. The report was commissioned by Seeger Weiss, LLP, and William Cedar, LLC, Abraham Watkins, and the Simpson Tugel law firm, which collectively represents 300 survivors of clergy sex abuse nationwide. The data in the report was obtained from public filings in the individual states. Wow, individually stated that these people sat here and came forward and said I was molested or raped by some pedo pastor, and they got them all on record. Yet they still ain't doing nothing. It's gonna come down to hanging these rapists, man. Attorney General Josh Shapiro, whose blockbuster grand jury report last year identified 301 predator priests in 6 dioceses who were alleged to have abused more than 1,000 children, has been leading the charge to lift those statutes of limitations. Well, all praises to Attorney General Josh Shapiro for doing righteous work. The extensive lobbying by the Catholic Church in Pennsylvania against the reforms recommended by the grand jury proves what I have said all along. The church cannot be trusted to police itself, Shapiro said. It's reprehensible that the church continues to spend significant sums of money fighting the reforms instead of protecting and supporting the victims of clergy sexual abuse. Say it with the chest. Maybe they didn't hear you. Because they ain't getting it. They go in the wrong direction. These people are going in the wrong direction. Right? The Pennsylvania Catholic Conference and the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops did not return an NBC News request for comment. Well, I want to talk to you. In New York, church spent $2,912,772 in what ultimately was a failed bid to prevent the passage of the Child Victims Act, which Governor Andrew Cuomo signed into law on February 14th. It allows child sexual abuse victims to sue their abuser or institutions until the age of 55. Previously, the cutoff was at the age 23. Of that money, 80% went to the Catholic Conference Policy Group, Incorporated, which was tasked the lobbying of statutes of limitations, legislative issues, and liability issues, the report found. Right back at them. It's all in their hands. I think it's incredibly troubling that the parishioners who on Sundays contributed to the church collection may have been inadvertently funding lobbying efforts against victims of sex abuse seeking legal redress. New York State Senator Brant Holman, who championed the Child Victims Act, said $3 million that went for lobbying could have done a lot of good elsewhere, including soup kitchens, after-school programs for children, support for seniors. In my district, a Catholic school is closing might perhaps have stayed open if the money had been used for better causes. You see that? They had they had lobbying efforts, inadvertently lobbying efforts of sex abuse seeking legal redress. They took the collection, so the money that they're putting in that collection plate may be paying for your pedo's pastor's behavior to get away with it. You're paying his legal fees as you pay out to these crooked Christian churches. Right? Shortly before the New York State legislature took up the Child Victims Act, Cardinal Timothy Dolan called in an op-ed published in the New York Daily News for measures that would avoid breaking the Roman Catholic Church. Uh-oh. Satan cast down Satan. They going at each other in there. In an email to NBC News, Dennis Paust, a spokesman for the New York State Catholic Conference, said all of our lobbying activities is reported as required by law to the Joint Commission on Public Ethics and has always been publicly available. Obviously not. As far as the Child Victims Act, while we did raise concerns about the one-year look back, ultimately, when sponsors amended the bill, our request to provide an opportunity for recourse to survivors in public institutions, the Catholic Conference dropped its opposition this year. He wrote, "We asked for comment." New York Diocese spokesman Joseph Zwilling referred NBC News to Paust. In Connecticut, where advocates for victims to pre-sex abuse were presently pushing for the elimination of the statutes of limitations for the major sex crimes, the church spent $875,261, according to the report. The report also said the church spent $633,458 in New Jersey, where Governor Phil Murphy last month signed legislation that allows child victims to sue up until they turn 55 or within 7 years of their first realization that the abuse caused them harm, according to the Associated Press. During that time period, the church spent $537,551 in Massachusetts, $124,260 in Maine, and $61,961 in Rhode Island. That is completely inaccurate, said James Driscoll, executive director of the Massachusetts Catholic Conference. I have no idea where the writer of this report came up with this figure. They never checked with me for any input before they wrote this report. And in this New Hampshire, where legislations to lift or amend the statutes of limitations has yet to be introduced, the church has spent $134,345, according to the report. It's appalling that the parishioners' donations are used to keep child sex crimes, and those who committed and canceled them covered up, said David Clahosi, the former director of the Survivor Network of Those Abused by Priests, or SNAP. There's no better indication of how bishops think and act than where they put their flock's funds. And there are few more egregious and reckless ways to spend churchgoers' contributions than to put their kids at risk by fighting secular reforms that help expose predators. That's right. But we got a backwards system here, so obviously you're going to pay for your pain. That's what people are doing, going to church. You're paying for your pain. You go to church, you hear a few scriptures, God loves everybody, pass those collection plates around, get the music blasting, felt like we back in Saturday night clubs, and happy Sunday, right? Go out and eat, go pray over your pork, right after Sunday. Those are the things that we got going on, man. Right? Ask if he believes the church was willing to spend the kind of money on lobbyists because the feared payouts for victims would cost 10 times more. Weiss said that appears to be the case. The church made the soulless decision to spend $10 million of its dollars to evade responsibility to those harmed by clergy abuse, rather than use those funds towards the healing process. He said clearly these expenditures were aimed at protecting the church financial interests, not at doing the right thing. Right? Word from the head, straight from the devil himself, man. They don't care about you. They don't care about you. They don't do what they want to do. You know what I'm saying? They don't do what they want to do. So, let's go to the Father real quick and see what he got to say about this. It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 22. It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 22, verse 25. But if a man find a betrothed damsel in the field, and a man force her and lie with her, then the man only that lay with her shall die. You see that? So the Most High said, you're supposed to put these people to death that's sitting here raping and molesting these children. You know what I'm saying? There was even a story about this. If you go back, let's go to 2 Samuel and chapter 13, verse 14, right? Howbeit would not hearken unto her voice, but being stronger than she, forced her and lay with her. Now this was the brother of Amnon, who was sitting here trying to rape his sister. He rapes his sister, and a whole thing breaks out, and he hated it. It went back and forth. There was a three-triangle thing going on, and the father heard about it. And finally, the father set him up and said, you know what? This dude needs to be put to death. So let's jump down to 28, right? Now, Absalom had commanded his servants, saying, mark ye now when Amnon's heart is merry with wine. You see that? He set him up, got him drunk. And when I say unto you, smite Amnon, then kill him, and fear not. See that? See, he raped his sister. Rape was a very, sin to death, man. You're ruining a sister that way. There's no way you should be sitting here, you know what I'm saying, just raping and taking control of your virgin sister, man. That does damage. They always remember who they first is, and if it's divulging, it brings depression and all types of other problems with it. So they killed him. Fear not, for I have not commanded you. Be courageous and be valiant. So he put him to death, man. He put him straight to death for raping, man. Even the brothers, Levi and Simeon, man, they put to death Dina's rapist. They wasn't playing that, man. They didn't play with games with these rapists, man. Right? So verse 26, this is Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 26. But unto the damsel thou shalt do nothing. There is in the damsel no sin worthy of death. For as when a man riseth against his neighbor and slayeth him, even so is this matter. You see that? So the Most High said, man, rape is the same thing as killing somebody. It's no difference. You rape a girl, you put her to death. And he said you could be put to death for that. He said, let's find out what that death sentence, the Most High, according to the Most High, what's the death sentence according to the Most High? Right? It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 21, verse 22. And if a man have committed a sin worthy of death, and he be to be put to death, and thou hang him on a tree. You see that? He said you're supposed to hang that dude on a tree. Right? Verse 23, his body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but thou shalt in any wise bury him that day. For he that is hanged is accursed of the Most High, that thy land be not defiled, which Yahweh thy God giveth thee for an inheritance. So basically, man, these brothers is going to have to be put to death. They're rapists, man, and they're demons, and they fighting against it. And they selling, you know what I'm saying? They're paying out more money to sit here and buy laws to keep them from being judged. That's all it is. They're getting rich off your money and then selling it back to you that you can simply, you know what I'm saying, get out of jail free card. You're paying your pastor for a get out of jail free card. Every time you sit here and you pay your tithes, you put your money in that basket, right? Let's finish this off. This is Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 27. For he found here in the field and betrothed damsel cried, and there was none to save her. You see that? All these sisters that have been raped, even the men, they've been quiet. They were forced to be quiet. They were bullied to be quiet about these things that was going on with these pastors, man. These Catholic church pastors who are sitting here killing everybody through rape and molestation as a child, and using polygamy as a way to sit here and bring in more children, turn it into a sex slave family or something, man. These people are on some other stuff. Exorcisms are now oral sex rituals or whatever they want to call it. They got so much going on with them. There's so much demonic activity coming out of the church. If you're still sitting in the church, please do yourself a favor and get out. With that being said, all praise and honor and glory to the Father, Yahweh Hamasiyach YHWH, You know what I'm saying? Shalom.